Okay, hello everyone. My name is Molly Crease, and welcome to the network, another episode of the Network Our podcast. I am so excited to be here. I have here with me a colleague, friend. His name is Anthony Sanford. Hi, Anthony. How are you this evening?
Good evening to you, Molly. Good evening to everybody on the podcast list. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it. Happy Friday. Weekend is here. Let's go.
Yes, it's the weekend. Yes. So I'm just gonna give a short intro and then he's gonna tell you all about himself. Anthony he's the assistant director for digital inclusion at City of New York. And today our topic, we're going to be talking about digital inclusion. It's a very interesting topic. I can't wait to dive into it. But before we get into it, I am going to let Anthony tell you a little bit about himself, not just about what he do, but about who Anthony is as a person and what does he get into, where is he originally from, stuff like that. So go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate the introduction. First of all, let me say shout out to the New York chapter of Black MBA.
Yeah.
I see. You see, I'm privileged to be down. I'm privileged to be down. Shout out to the was it the chapter president Andrew. He
Andrew Hamilton, yes, we won some
yes.
awards.
Yeah, you won the membership, the membership award. I definitely was peeping it and following along on the Black MBA Instagram account. So
yeah,
shout out to the team, and I'm looking forward to the next round of mentorship for next year and everything. So
yes.
that leads into like some of the stuff that Anthony Sanford does. So good evening, everybody. Anthony Sanford, native of Guyana, Georgetown, Guyana, Anna Catharina, West Coast Burbies, GT Massive. What's up to all of my GT people? I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. Shout out to my 80s babies because I'm definitely an 80s baby. So I remember what the 80s was like. In addition to, I'm a native New Yorker. Spent 4 years at St. Francis University, which I have the privilege. As of a few weeks ago, I've been appointed to the president's cabinet as a special advisor from New York City. I received it as a written letter and a phone call from the president of St. Francis University asking me to be on this. And this position just entails me to be an advisor on school policy, all things admissions related, admissions, culture, technology, everything. So this is part of one of my growing passions with my alma mater to impact change, because St. Francis is a PWI, and when I went there, it wasn't a lot of Black folk up there. So me being on here, getting the message out about St. Francis, or even just changing the culture to make things better and better for the person of color experience at St. Francis. I don't want to just say Black, because when I was there, we definitely had some Indian students. We also had some Filipino students. We also had a whole diverse amount of students, but I mean, it was a small amount of us. So shout out to St. Francis for that appointment as well. I'm an active member and the current chapter president of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, Incorporated Harlem Sigmas, the Epsilon Sigma chapter, serving the Harlem community for over 100 years. So shout out to Sigma. I got to give my blue and white family some love as well. What do I do? I currently work for the mayor's office of the chief technology officer. I'll get into more about that once we have the question and answer portion. I'm active in my community. I'm from the Bronx. I like to do a lot of initiatives that are geared towards the Bronx, because the Bronx has historically been the borough that doesn't get all it just deserves and everything. So I'm an advocate for a lot of things Bronx related. And shout out to a good person that I happened to meet a few times, Vanessa Gibson, who is the newly appointed Bronx Borough president. So she's also a member of Delta Sigma Theta as well. So shout out to her.
I was waiting for him to go some more, guys. It's
Nah,
like-
man, nah. Mm-mm.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
I apologize. No, it's Vanessa Gibson, who is the chancellor, New York City chancellor of New York City. My bad. Whew. I'm gonna get roasted for that mess up.
Yeah, because she's gonna listen to this.
I know.
So this is the Network Hour podcast,
Mhm.
and it's I'm all about networking, and I
Let's do it.
imagine the job that you're in and all of that stuff, you have to do a lot of networking. So I
Yes.
want you to share with us your experience or relationship with networking. It could be a story, it could be something that happened that you made that connection. Tell us something.
So networking is so important because there's different ways of doing it. And I didn't really learn the importance of networking until like my first 2 weeks in grad school. So once again, shout out to my grad school, Columbia University, SIPA School of International and Public Affairs. We were also ranked the #1 policy school for, I want to say maybe the fourth or fifth or sixth year. I mean, definitely when I was going there. So shout out to SIPA for that. And so I'm not going to give any names, but I was at a mixer, and one of the young ladies, she had like a 3.91 as a GPA in SIPA, and she was about to graduate, and she couldn't get any job offers. And I was like, that's crazy. Like you have a 391 and like nobody's really knocking on your door. So then what I did was, after my first year, which was actually one of my hardest years, because 2014 just really took a big deuce on me. I just took it upon myself to network as much as possible, get on the job boards, go to every single offering that I had to just talk to somebody, figure out. During grad school, I took time to figure out what I really wanted to do with my career and my life for at least the next 5, 10, 15, or even maybe 20 years that I can foresee, and just started talking with people. I wanted to get into the tech space, and thank God I was able to go into grad school during the same time that Columbia was doing the technology and policy initiatives. So after my first year of taking my graduate gen ed courses, I switched everything to tech and policy. And then I it's embarrassing to say, but I stalked a lot of professors, a lot of people that were in the industry. You have to leverage your network as well.
Mhm.
So Columbia is one of those schools that, people come there. It's an ecosystem of people that just want to be there. So anything that was happening at Columbia in terms of technology summits, conferences, whatever the case may be, I tried to make myself available to go to those. And I met a few people. I met one particular person. His name was Bruce Lincoln. He at the time was the co-founder of Silicon Harlem. I didn't know that at the time. And I met him while I was a research assistant at the Columbia University what is it? Information and Technology Institute. And then from there, I met him and the other co-founder, Clayton Banks, and they put me on a project called the RISE Project, which allowed me to go and network with small businesses in East Harlem that were affected by Superstorm Sandy. So my job at the time was to go and pretty much pave the pavement every day and just talk to business owners about getting on this mesh or building up this mesh network to have to be eligible for this benefit that the city was offering. And during that time, I still leveraged my networks, talking with people, talking with other areas that were affected, other stewards that were representing specific areas. It was Brownsville, it was the Bronx, East Harlem, and Gowanus as well, and just continued to build from there. And then I met my old boss. His name was Joshua Breitbart at a mixer at Silicon Alley downtown. And then a year later, then I started my job at the mayor's office, and I've been here for about almost 4 years.
Great. So networking has been very instrumental in your career journey and where you are today.
Networking can actually be the maker or breaker of you getting into what you need. So
Definitely. So, sir, let's jump right into it.
let's
So
do it.
tell me, for me and for our listeners, tell me, what is digital inclusion?
So digital inclusion is pretty much it is a focus on getting people. All right, let me say it better this way. So there's this thing right now called the digital divide. So um, there was a few means of the equity gap that historically underserved areas had to deal with. Some will say it's the proper it's people having property. Some people didn't. Some people might say it's the equity gap, women working and not getting paid accordingly, historical racism, historical redlining, whatever the case may be. So as all of these factors have come to fruition, the wealth area has widened and widened and widened. So now we're in the technology era in which, it's all about the phones, the internet, the whatever. And some places do not have the bare minimum of these things to stay up, or to close the gap of the digital divide. My job is to go into these underserved areas and equip them with the best tools possible, particularly broadband, high-speed internet. So as we've noticed, or as we've experienced through this thing called the pandemic 2020, how important reliable broadband is, because for a year and a half, we've had to live virtually. So just imagine if you're in the pandemic and you don't have reliable broadband service, you can't talk to anybody like how you wanted to. You can't order. You can't see certain TV shows. You can't Netflix and chill. You can't do anything. So you're kind of cooped up in your home, and like you're like this. All this is affecting your mental health. In addition to prior to the pandemic, the lack of affordable broadband were impacting underserved areas because kids couldn't log on to the computers and download their homeworks. Once again, we're moving in a technology era in which technology is being interwoven into our daily lives. So it's important for not just areas that the dollar is circulating all the time, but underserved areas to have that sort of circulating dollar as well. So what we do is we partner with a lot of community-based organizations as well as big telecommunication providers and even smaller ones to offer alternatives for people to have affordable broadband. So I'm talking with a lot of people all the time, working on contracts, MSAs, master service agreements, anything that has to do towards bringing programming to these areas to help facilitate this need for New Yorkers.
So I want to jump in here because you talk about a few things there. You've gone into a few things there.
Mhm.
Um, and it sounds like there are numerous barriers to
Yep.
this digital inclusion. So I want us to tackle some of those barriers. So you mentioned affordable. I
Mhm.
would imagine also having access would
Mhm.
be one of those barriers as well, and also the quality of the technology and stuff like that, and also the being able to be self-sufficient, or being able to even know what you're doing when you're using these devices, whether it be phone, computers, or whatever.
Right.
So talk about those barriers and what can be done to alleviate some of those barriers.
So one of the biggest barriers, as always, is education. So I'm a huge advocate for education. I have my advanced degree, but I still have like a yearning desire to go back for additional education, in addition to just understanding the dynamics. So it's always a constant need to be learning. So I'll highlight one of the programs that I have the privilege, and I'm really going to say this is a privilege, because um, I, I get emotional whenever I go towards the graduations for these individuals, because they work so hard at it. So you and I can say this, that we're in a nice age bracket in which we can say that we've seen what life was like before before computers, and now interacting with computers. Now just imagine being 20 years removed from that, and not having to be there during the first Apples, or the first Dell computers and stuff. So that aging population, they haven't really like grasped onto it as much as we would have, our generation. So over the pandemic, there was a huge cohort of older adults that through the program, called through the sub through the DIFTA, Department for the Aging, and their subcontractor OATS, Older Adults Technology Services, they were able to create programming for this aging population, and it's constant education of how to get onto the internet, how to navigate through websites, how to communicate with each other, and it's continuously building upon this community of of the aging community, and it just grows and grows and grows and grows. So during the pandemic, we were able to continuously have quarterly graduation ceremonies via Zoom or WebEx, and you could just see the pride in this in these people's faces, and it varies in terms of not just English, it's Spanish, it's Russian, it's Mandarin. It's a few more languages. I'm losing it, right. I'm losing the amount of um, languages, but this older population, they're just so proud, and every single quarter it grew and grew. So the word was getting out, and these people, it was kind of like a lifesaver, and there's so many testimonials on the oats website, that you can really see how this impacted them. So just imagine us again dealing with the pandemic, and I remember BlackBerry Bold, I remember my first flip phone and all of this stuff. Now just imagine this, growing up with just like the dial-up phone or the rotary phone, the phones on the wall with the long cord and everything, and you didn't really need to have those phones or those portable phones. But now you're learning this technology. You're learning how to get onto Facebook at at 65 and up, just to be connected, to not lose your sanity. Like, I don't know how it was for you, but like the pandemic hit everybody a little bit different. But just imagine just being at that accelerated age and learning how to communicate through this new way of doing it. It was so scary, but my heart goes out to them. And like, it's programs like those that really hit home for me as to why um, this broadband, or at least fighting for these types of um, benefits for the city or for underserved communities is so important, because we've had a live session of why it's needed. Like, we just lived it and we're still living it. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with this Delta variant. We don't know if we're going to um, be doing the dual programming again. But like, this is what life is like for us now.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's not just that age group. Because
Mhm.
I have a cousin, he's in his early 50s, right? And although he has a phone, there are certain things that he cannot do. And he would ask me to help him do, like to get into the email and all this different stuff. So I think in every age group, maybe Gen X or whatever might be way more better at the computers and all that stuff. But in the underdeserved communities where they don't have access, and I think access is a really big barrier. If you don't have access to something, you're not able to learn about it, you're not able to see it. And that's a big problem. And when you don't have access, and then like you mentioned in COVID, where we had to have a lot of online schooling, and
Mhm.
then we have parents that don't know how to do the computers and the access and to use the program that the children have to use to do their school. Because I saw my sister went through this with my niece, and my sister is in her early 40s.
Mhm.
And then we have the kids that really don't know everything yet and needs a grown up to teach it to them. Because let's face it, we had COVID, and kids had to do online school from the ages of 5, 6, 7, all the way up to high school and college. They're doing online school. So I commend your program for doing that age group. But then I think there's more to be done with the other age groups as well, because we've seen that happen during COVID. COVID has just like opened up the lid and just exposed everything that's happening in these minority communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're talking about we're talking about, recreational things. You know what else we had to do during COVID? Telehealth. Like, do this. Even with COVID, there was still people that have diabetes that still need to get their check-ins with their doctors, that were still getting regularly sick, and everything was so we had to socially distance so much that telehealth was a real thing. Like, again, broadband, or the availability to have the basics. Like, at this point, I'm thinking affordable broadband is going to be a utility, similarly to heat, water, and any other thing that you're going to need to pay. And that's not even talking about the indirect cost of what broadband is going to cost New York City. Like, we're now in the recovery phase of COVID. Again, Delta variant, or however the city moves moving forward. But this is just Anthony Sanford speaking, not representing my current position. But what happens with the commercial real estate market? You know, look at how COVID has affected certain businesses. Prior to COVID, the lunch crowd was booming, and you had all of the food vendors. Like, now, people have been working remotely for so long, those food vendors aren't getting that same bit of money. So that's I think they estimate those food vendor guys bring in about $6,000 to $7,000 a year. Like, that, they're hurting right now, so now they have to be in recovery. So we haven't fully seen um how COVID has affected the external things. In addition to, this part is a highlight on my current agency. We were able to give out tablets to underserved areas um, during this time as well. because we weren't doing business the way that how we used to, we reallocated a lot of funding towards providing tablets throughout the city, which was a dope idea because again, there's that access and exposure and affordability. So we populated those tablets with specific apps that they needed just in case, but had the bare minimum of communication tools on it so that people can use it. And city gave it to them. Like the city came through. Like a lot of people don't realize. Now this is just my opinion of me saying this, but there's a lot of distrust for people and government, but the city nailed this one when they needed to, in my opinion.
I'm glad you brought that up because my next question to you was going to be what is being done to combat what is going on with to make it more make it more included for for minority communities and people that kind of afford it. So the first part of the question is what is being done to combat that, and the second part of the question is what else do you think that needs to be done to alleviate this problem?
So I don't think that this is a thing that's going to get done anytime, like it's going to get solved anytime soon, because again, this is something that has been happening for a long time. But what we can do is cut the curve. Like we can jump on it as much as possible and get to where we need to go. So I participated in a few city hall in the borough appearances, just educating the community on what the city is offering in terms of opportunities. We were at a ribbon cutting. Well, it was a ribbon cutting ceremony, but it was a bill cutting. So they took a bill and then they were cutting it. Anybody that wants to see it can look on my LinkedIn and check that out. But it was a nice ceremony in which our office, the mayor's office of the CTO, was partnering with NYCHA and Starry in order to set up affordable a partnership with Starry, which will be offering affordable broadband in the Brooklyn area. I want to say it's the Atlantic Terminal area. Please don't quote me on that one, but there are more efforts towards doing partnerships like this that the city is looking towards doing. I participated in two city hall in the borough campaigns. The one in the Bronx, which I'm very much Bronx for the Bronx because again, it's been one of the poorer boroughs, and the more people know about certain things, I'm very much in favor of being a spearhead for that. And then we did the one in Staten Island, which was a good look as well. I believe the next ones are Brooklyn and then Queens, or Queens and then Brooklyn, and then it may end in Manhattan. The current mayor, Bill de Blasio, he's made frequent appearances at the City Hall in the Borough campaigns. So that's always a good thing. While he's transitioning out, he's still showing that he is sticking through to his initiatives that he set for his mayoral campaign. Personally, I think more partnership needs to happen with some of the big providers, some of the smaller community-based organizations and providers that are intertwined in the community. Because who else are you going to trust better than the ones that know the community, know the culture? Brooklyn is different than the Bronx. Manhattan is different than Queens, but we all trust in these grassroots organizations. And I think the city, and I think this is a great opportunity for the city or any other company to get into these get establish partnerships and try and really, really drill down on this digital divide gap that it's still widening.
What changes do you think need to be done in the educational system as a whole, where it concerns to digital inclusion?
Um, I, well, I think things need to be adjusted to, for school drives. You're not going to be um, you're not going to need like an absorbent amount of books, paper, and all of these other things because kids aren't. So I don't know. I don't have kids, so I can't really speak on it. But I know that kids are working on tablets these days. The homework is being done on tablets. So more pushes towards getting reliable tablets in schools. Oh, excuse me. STEAM programs, science, technology, education, arts, and math programs. I'm all for that. I think every high school, because I think you got to start at the high school level, needs to titillate the mind of young people to understand what technology can do, the jobs that can come from this. Some jobs that you might not even need to go to college. I'm not saying that I'm an advocate for no people not going to college. I'm I'm a huge person that went to college and I love the institution of education, but partnering with the Googles, the Amazons, the Perscoluses in the Bronx, the Red Hook initiatives, the Red Hook initiatives in Brooklyn, the understanding how technology works, what millimeter wave technology is, what's the next iteration of 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 broadband comes from. How do we get broadband? Like, what does a tower look like? All of these things, I think it needs to be a curriculum that kids can learn about because again, it's part of the fabric of life now. So if you can carve out your own niche and make a career out of it, why not?
All right, Anthony.
Oh,
This,
on a
yes.
side note, we need more engineers. Like we need to get back. We need to get back to that. Engineers and people understanding how technology works. And additionally, we need electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, etc. Like, do you have any idea how much these careers make? Like for the people that are going to see this podcast, crazy amounts. Like,
Mhm.
and it's built and it's building and it's going back to the building blocks of what this country was, building upon something, creating things, making things that worked good, but fine tuning things to make it even better. And that's my cry out to any young person that watches this podcast. Like, technology is real. You If you've been around for the past couple of years, you see what we had to go through. Plan accordingly. Like, you can make a good lifestyle for yourself by still getting the bare bones of reading, writing, and math, but seeing how those fundamental things can set you up for a really nice career with these tech companies. You can go consulting from that because if you have the engineering background, you can now understand how technology or anything else works. That's my only pitch to young people. Understand what is being offered now because yeah, you guys have a lot more opportunities.
Well, we are out of time, and
Are we?
I feel like we have only begun to scratch the surface of this topic. We're probably gonna have to have you come back again, probably do a panel on it or something.
We
But
can't we can't just extend me a little
we
bit?
have already passed the 30-minute mark, and we are out of time. I will have to have you come back. We will definitely have to do a part two to this because there is so much more that I wanna get into. It's such a big topic, and I think there is so many other ways and so many things we can discuss about this. I think it's very, very important. I'm glad that NYC has started to tackle the issues. There is a long, long way to go, talking about how we can develop our communities, do
Mhm.
with the schools, the libraries, and all these other stuff. So there's so many more things to get into. But we have to end it here this evening. Sorry, guys. We will come back again, I promise. Thank you to Anthony for coming through and for helping us understand a little bit more about digital inclusion and stuff that NYC is doing and stuff that more things that needs to be done to make sure that our kids and our parents and our elders out there are being included when it comes to these broadband and technology and all these decisions. So I really want to thank you guys for listening. Anthony, I want to thank you for coming through. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to give any last bit notes or anything last you want to say on the topic or what you have coming up or what you're doing before we close out.
Okay, well, thank you again for the opportunity to talk on this podcast. Shout out to the Network Hour podcast and its host. Let me also give a shout out because I don't want to, big up anybody's name and everything, but a certain host was also the spearhead of the lot program, the leaders of tomorrow. So shout out to her and all of her work. So she's continuously doing some really good work. And again, I'm privileged to know her, to talk to her, to be able to chop it up with her, and even learn of her journey navigating this business world. So shout out to you, Molly, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming through. And guys, this has been another episode of the Network Hour podcast. Until I come to you again with another episode, I want you to live, laugh, and love. And I will see you again in the next episode. Thank you, guys. Bye.